Okay, so group 6 today. Today we'll talk about what happened next. Like we'll summarize and then we'll talk about what happened next as you start to awaken to your addictions. So let's start with here. Fortunately, my screen stayed. And remember that if you have a question, please use the raise hand tag, because I can't see everyone right now. Okay, so here's how it works. We have painful events in life. Just trying to maximize this. Painful events in life that points to compensation that we're engaging addictions. This is tricky because when things are happening to us, we want to go into blame. We want to go into we're being hard done by, that we've done all these things or made all these efforts, and why are we in pain now? And we've been good and we're led a good life, and why do we have illnesses or people not treating us well, or money issues, or whatever it is. So there's some kind of pain in life. And at some point, as you grieve and grieve and grieve and blame and anger and all of that stuff, at some point you will come to see the addiction in you that you were engaging in that resulted in the pain. Because right now in the adult life, most of our pains are about the compensation from the addictions, unfortunately. Though at first you're like, no, I'm being wrong. You want to stay in the blame piece, which you got to work through. But at some point you start to see the addiction that made you open to being manipulated or exploited to begin with. And then at some point you start to go, okay, I have addictions. I need to see the damage I'm doing in this addiction. You're already feeling the pain of it. So this is why if you're experiencing some kind of pain in your day-to-day life and you try to numb it, now you're not even processing the compensation of the addiction. So you do need to sensitize yourself and let yourself process the pain, the discomfort, the whiplash of it. As you start to feel the pain, you're at least releasing it, you're releasing it from your soul. And then you start to recognize the addiction, and then you start to see, okay, how bad is this addiction? My addiction for control. What is the true cost of this addiction to myself and to others? And then you start to ask, okay, help me feel every time I engage this addiction. You can ask for that prayer. So you can actually feel it in you. You can feel you engaging it, or at first you feel it after you engage it. You do some activity, you had some conversations, and you come back going, it's a niggle, like something didn't feel right. And then you look back and go, oh, I wasn't in addiction. And then hopefully you say, okay, I got to challenge this addiction. And so you let yourself feel how much you want it, but you don't act on it. So then you feel the emotion, like you do have to emotionally feel the addiction for power, for control, for feeling inferior, feeling superior, feeling special, feeling important, a bunch of other addictions. You got to feel it emotionally, you got to own it. And then you start to go, okay, I can't have it. Or you're already not getting some addictions met. So you're already feeling angry, irritable, sad that you're not getting what you want. So then you go into the anger about it, you go into the tantrum, you go into the grief, like you actually cry, you get depressed, you go through all of those emotions, and you're like, I gotta stop engaging this addiction. It just, or you have no choice because it's been forcefully removed from you. You just can't get the addiction. It's gone. And you can't find a replacement for it. So you have no choice then to feel the pain about not getting the addiction. So then what happened? So this is all just the top portion of your experience that we all, struggling with and suffering from, and all emotion, and help me, and you have anger, and you feel justified, and you want people to help you and sympathize, and all those things are going on over here. You stop all of it, And it was always about this part here. All addictions are about numbing out, suppressing, denying fear, the emotion of fear. So the emotion of fear will start to come up. Anxiety, like for me, I'll start to look around going, is something wrong? Is something going on? Is something going to happen? I don't feel right. I feel anxious. I feel vigilant. And then I have to remind myself the addiction was covering a fear, and the fear is beginning to come up. So when you know it, you can allow the fear to start to come up, and you remind yourself a couple of things. For me, so far, fear is always about remembering past events. I don't want to remember something because it has some emotions that I see as painful. And it's always about a lie. So for me, I don't even negotiate with the fear anymore. I just release it, and then truth can enter me. Some people at the beginning, you're trying to negotiate, you're trying to argue, you're trying to, all of those things will happen. I don't do that anymore. You just release it. And then you can have fear just about everything. Fear about feeling fear about feeling emotions, fear about how terrible you'll feel that you won't get your addiction, fear about feeling childhood anger, fear about feeling shame, fear about feeling grief. Step by step by step by step, you're going to have fear, 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 fear. That's how I see it. Every layer will have some kind of fear to release. But once you release a bulk of it, you don't see the same fear come up the next time. And here's where it gets tricky, because if you don't want to feel fear, you're going to go back into addictions, a different kind of addiction. You will slip back up. If you don't want to feel the emotion under it, back in the addiction. And sometimes that is a clue. You'll notice that suddenly you're antsy and anxious and in this kind of frenzy, and you're going, is something coming up? Why am I engaging in this thing that I usually don't want? I have to talk to a friend. I have to do some activities. I have to watch a movie. Like, I'm not a TV watcher, and suddenly I'm binging on Netflix. And you're going, oh, is something coming up? So they become clues that there's something coming up that you are uncomfortable with, that you're just automatically avoiding. So that's the overview so far. So at some point, you're going to start to process fears. So where's everyone at with that? Questions, comments? We good? Hi, Alicia.
I was feeling like, oh, now I have to let someone else speak. So there's an addiction in itself. I feel like this week, I didn't honestly start until the middle of the week, the challenge, I mean.
Okay.
And that I realized that, oh, well, I really did those addictions in the days before, like big time. It's like I had to, like bringing a boil to the head, it had to come up. And I can see that I actually chose 3 physical ones because I could see how they all interplayed with one another.
Okay.
That makes sense. And I feel still a bit confused because I've had lots of memories come up, lots of little emotions, but nothing really major.
Okay.
For me yet, so I'm obviously in less desire than I could be, and not.
I don't think so.
Sure, but anyway, I'm there. Anyway.
Okay.
But with the videos that you sent, there were a couple that I haven't seen before, and they were or 3 actually, from Texas, about and that really triggered me a lot, and it was very useful to watch those 3 videos. Thank you for sharing those.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to mention.
Okay, so you were beginning to get some memories,
Yes.
You said some glimpses here and there. That is what it's like for me. So is
Or it's like little bits of like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, that and that and that and that and that, and little
yeah,
things coming in. Yeah.
that is what it's like for me. So that's okay.
But I haven't got to some clarity about it. It's just like a mosaic that I haven't got all the pieces of yet.
All right. So you want to understand. Okay. So
And I can see that there's a part of me wants to get, I want to get to the it's like I've numbed out and I have got to some emotion, but not that much. And then my head goes, maybe I'm not good enough at this. And it felt a little bit like, oh, homework from school or something. So I could feel that I was in that dichotomy of mind and heart going on, for sure.
right.
For me.
So what's happening there is the recreation of minimizing the child's experience. So what happens is that so at some point you're going to start to connect to the hurt self. So you start to take away the addiction, you're connecting to the hurt self. And you will notice that you have a facade that treats the hurt child the same way the adults did.
Yeah, that really touches. Yeah, definitely.
So what you are observing is that you're minimizing her emotional experience.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just a little memory here and there. Oh, that one's not important. Or this one is not. So that's a recreation of minimizing the hurt self.
Okay.
So you want to step back and go, okay, I've learned to minimize. Some emotions are important, some emotions are not. And so then you're going, this is how I'm treating the hurt child.
Yeah.
Okay, what do I want to change here about how do I want to treat the hurt child? Why would I treat that as important? Why did I learn that that isn't important? How are my guides treating the hurt child emotional experience? Do they minimize that some emotional experience are more important than others? So
yeah.
now that's exposing a facade for you to work through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of education that happened around the process, but you will observe how you in your facade self are abusing the hurt child. And the addictions are about, the addictions are about ignoring the hurt child. That is the choice that's being made. And so now you're going to start to feel the hurt child that is being abused, minimized, ignored, shamed. You're going to start to notice yourself doing that. And you're going to have to feel about how you want to treat the child.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if a little child come to you and go, hey, look what just happened to me just now, and this and that, and this and that, and my friend said this, and I did that, and this and that. And obviously most parents will go, oh my God, just why do you have to tell me everything or something? That's not important, or I'm busy, or I don't have the emotional energy for you right now. That is how we treat it as children. So now you want to stop yourself and go, my hurt child just presented me with a memory and it's kind of testing the waters. Can you be trusted? How do you want to treat her?
Yeah.
So what would you like to try out with the child?
Well, you mentioned earlier about, or you come to a place where you're forced or removed. So in a way, I've created the situation where I'm forced into something, and I've had everything removed from me for like the last 2 years, actually.
Okay.
And so I was wondering about how to challenge myself.
Okay.
Because the underlying feels basically on a base level feels the feeling of unloved, and therefore a demand to feel loved.
Okay.
Knowing, of course, it's not the truth, as you said, it's a lie. But yeah.
So there's a child inside of you that feels unloved.
Yes.
And is demanding to be loved.
Yes.
Right? The child is.
Yes.
How do you want to treat her?
I want to care for her and tell her everything's okay. And a part of me has been working through this for years. I haven't looked at it, or the last couple of years for sure. I just haven't looked at it from an addictive perspective before.
Yeah, but the child is in addiction. How do you want to treat the child who's in the addiction?
The child who's in the addiction.
How would you treat a little child that is demanding to be loved, knowing that that's an addiction, and you got to teach her to stop, and also help her to feel that you're feeling unloved? And how do you, so I'm not expecting you to have answers, I'm just giving you the questions, because as you now start to connect to the hurt child, these are the processes that you're going to have to re-parent. But then, you know, if you as an adult are going, I'm in an addiction, you treat yourself very badly. But then you see a little child in a tantrum in a supermarket, obviously the child is in a tantrum. So you do have to confront that addiction, but how are you going to treat the child? Because we're like, how do you treat a child who's in a tantrum? Where you're like, I can't give you what you want, but how am I going to treat you in the process? So you can then drop into the grief of feeling unloved. So I catch myself shaming the child, going, oh, you want to be loved? What's the matter with you? You're so needy.
Actually, shame came up a lot for me this week.
Perfect. So you want to catch the adult you who is shaming the child. Because that's, otherwise she would have exposed herself a long time ago and say, here's how I'm feeling. So you want to,
and you telling me this also, thank you, sorry to hog this place, reminds me that I obviously have an addiction, because every time there's a little child in the street, I don't need to know them at all, I'm always attracted to that little child, and sort of, especially if they're a little unhappy or something, and I walk near them with the dogs and they sort of change, but I can see that's an addiction to do that.
What is it you're looking for?
I don't know, like I'm trying to make sure the child is okay, or
okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm not doing it for myself.
So here's the thing. When I connect to the hurt child and she asks me, will someone love me? Am I going to be okay? Are things going to get better? I don't answer the child. I don't tell her. I don't reassure her. Things can still happen to me. Bad things can still happen to me. That's the truth. And I don't want to reassure her because she's broken and damaged. I want her to share it. I want her to expose it. So if I reassure her, I'm suppressing something that I can't deliver. And the world didn't deliver. I'm connecting to a child who's, say, 5, and I know just how much worse things got after. So I can't say to her everything was okay after. It wasn't. It got really bad. It got worse. So you don't want to lie to the child.
Yeah, that's really spot on. Thank you.
And what you do want to do, from some of the processes I've figured out so far, is I'm teaching the child. Eventually the penny dropped and I said, well, what God did give to us was to forgive. Feel the emotion and release and forgiveness. That is the healing. That is the process. So it's taken years.
Yes, sorry. I can see that goes in layers, because I feel I go into places, not just now, but in the past, I go into places where I feel like I've come to some level of forgiveness, but it's like, oh, well, there's another layer.
But but again, there's now a demand that the child should forgive, when what you want is to teach the child that you got to forgive. That is the way to. So be aware of what you think the child should do versus inviting the child. Because I connect to a child in me that's very angry, that's very rigid, that's very fixed, because that's a protection. How am I going to approach her? How do I, how are you feeling? How, like, sometimes I'm touching, sometimes I'm just sitting there looking, and attending. I have to earn her trust again because I, as the adult in my facade, have been abusing the hurt child.
Yeah.
Or many, many different splintered off pieces of me. So now I have to earn her trust. So how am I going to treat this child? And so I had to get educated. How do I treat this child that's in this injury? And fortunately, I watch how my guides are treating me or treating others, and that became a modeling for how I will treat a child.
Yeah.
But I can feel inside of me this anger of like, oh my God, you're so needy. Why do you want to be loved? What's the matter with you? And it's like, ooh, whoopsie. Okay. So you gotta let yourself be honest with this feeling that comes up in you towards the child. And you're going, oh, that's where I'm at right now. I am hurting the child. And I feel like she should be ashamed of herself for being so needy. And it's like, that must be how I was treated. That kind of makes sense. So that I can feel about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But things were not okay for you as a child, and nothing will change that story. You gotta help the child come to terms with that. It was not okay. It'll always be a story that the child was not okay. You cannot heal that. Like you can't change that story, but you can help her grieve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More layers. Thank you, Mila. Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Sandy? Hi,
Hey.
Sandy. Haven't seen you for a couple of weeks.
Did you guys? I think the time changed in the US today and it threw me off. It's but I think it was divine intervention that I joined. Anyways, I just feel very deeply, I think this is my inner child, feels very deeply triggered and pissed at what you're saying right now.
Okay, good. Okay.
Because I just think Dharm is it's so mean.
Yeah.
Because like if this child has like suffered and then you're finally like aware of like, okay, this child is hurt because they haven't received love.
Yeah.
And then you're just gonna be like, oh, and I'm gonna continue to deny you that. Like that just seems like horrible to me.
Okay. And so what is happening here is that the child is feeling unloved and have to develop addictions to get love. And now the child is being told, well, those behaviors won't work anymore because those are causing pain. Is that where you're at?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is what we want. We want to find that child that's going, what do you mean I can't ask for love anymore? What do you mean those were demands? What do you mean I'm causing pain to people? Are you saying I'm now a terrible person? Is that what you said? So we want those pieces, we want those feelings. And so how do I respond to that? Is I will usually say, there is nothing wrong in wanting love, but anything I do to suppress the grief about being unloved is causing more pain. And I don't want that for you. But what I know, because I'm going as the adult going, I don't know how this works either, but what I've learned is that if I grieve that I wasn't loved, something else wakes up inside of me that's going to feel very good. And I want to try that out. I want to see what happened. I want to see if that is true. And as the hurt child starts to trust me, which happens over a long time, the hurt child now will say, okay, let's try it. I trust you. I trust God. That's the reason. It's just very recent when the child will say, well, if that's what God say, I trust God to come true for me. Okay. Whew, that only took 5 years. So that's where I'm at now. But the child can feel the tantrum. The child can feel the anger of, what do you mean I have to give this up? This is very unfair. I don't accept it. Go ahead and tantrum. Go ahead and be mad at me. That's good. That's the hurt child's emotions being released. And sometimes I have answers, and for the longest time, when the hurt child will say, I was treated badly, what do you mean I can't ask for justice? I'm owed that. Took years, and I will say I actually don't have an answer why that is wrong. I just know that my action is coming from anger, it is hurting innocent people, it's got to stop, but I myself don't know why. That is wrong. And it took a long time to slowly receive the answers myself, receive the grief, receive the truth, and then to convince the child. And now the child is convinced.
Is that not gonna cause more damage? Like, because like, as far as just, like, just being like, no, like, you're not loved, you're never gonna receive love, all of this, is that not signaling, continuing to signal to your subconscious that it's like, it's never gonna happen, and that's what's gonna manifest?
Well, that is what she is already feeling. That was her experience. She just never processed it. But the moment you start to process it, you'll actually start to feel loved from inside, from your guides, from God. And the opposite happens. And then you're going, I'm good right here, right now. This feeling I'm having, I am absolutely content. And then that starts to build faith. Faith starts to grow that this is the place. Once you have one or two of those experiences, then the child is convinced. Because first, we're going to give the child the truth. For some reason, the child felt she wasn't loved. Stop. Right there. That has to be grieved and processed, not suppressed. And now you're locked in that pain forever. You want to rescue the child. You wanted to grieve it. But you're telling the child, as you grieve this, you will have a different experience. And let's go find out what that is. That's the pushback I'm giving to the child. Let's go find out. Because I can't hurt innocent people now. And usually the hurt child will say, well, no, I don't want to do that either. If that's what I'm doing, no, I don't want to do that. Am I a bad person? That's when I go, no. If you need to feel you're a bad person, you got to feel it. And I will usually say to the hurt child, the adult me will deal with the compensation of that. That's not on the child. She just needs to release it. She gets to stop now. She gets to go play now. Because that's what children do. When children have a lot of trauma and they get to grieve and they get to tantrum, they get to cry, they still didn't get what they want, but they no longer want it. It was never about that. And then they just step out and go play. Another adventure awaits. They're done. That's what it's like when you look at little kids. Because something awoke from inside. They're feeling connected again. They're feeling their guides. They're feeling God. And I have now memories of those things happening to me as a child. I now remember those things happening. In those moments when I did go into that raw rage, why does my mom hate me? Nobody loves me. I remember having that event. I felt like I was an awful kid because I'm just being selfish. I'm just being self-indulgent. I'm upset that no one loves me. Why does she hate me so much? And just that pure emotion. And then I saw my guide come in and love me. That was profound. And I've forgotten about it, but now it's come back. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Jess?
Hi.
Hi.
I had a question, and then as soon as I raised my hand, I started to feel all this terror, this fear come up.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
But when you're talking about not like appeasing the hurt child, not saying like it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
I find that I do that quite often. But not in like you're not going to continue to get hurt, but that we are okay now because we have prayer, we have God.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know if this is an addiction or what, but that makes me feel safe in the moment to grieve.
Okay, that's fine. If it allows you to grieve, then yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I usually want to know what the child is feeling because I'm very suppressed. I really don't know how I feel. So I usually want to know, how are you feeling right now? Tell me your feelings, speak it out. But if that helps you to grieve, then yeah.
to feel safe, right? Because the fear of, if I'm in my emotions, I'm going to be punished, or there's going to be violence, or
Yeah.
and so
Which
being
is
like,
what happened to her.
yeah, but being like, okay,
So maybe you want to next time try and go, it is not safe to feel our emotions. Let her express it. Go there. Let yourself feel of like, if I say, sorry.
sorry, that saying that it's not safe to be in your emotions, whereas I'm doing the opposite, saying it's safe to be in your emotions now about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like,
just challenge it and see what happens. Because usually when I'm with a hurt child, I'm trying all these different approaches. Sometimes I say this, sometimes I say that. I'm trying to feel like which felt right, which didn't feel right, but always being truthful. So you can say to her, it is not safe to feel emotions. Tell me more. Say more about it. Well, if it's not safe, I'm not going to express my emotion. Okay, but I want your fear. Give me your fear. I'll feel it. I'll usually say, give me the emotion. I'll process it. So that I get her fear. And I can feel in you right now the demand. Jess, can you feel it?
No, I've maybe
the child's demand. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying, oh, there it is.
This is a new concept to me, where I'm like, okay, my adult self can take the fear of the child.
Oh, yeah.
And so that I was like, what? Because whenever I'm processing emotions, I'm in the child.
Yes.
Like it feels, yeah. So I was like, that's new. What? Yeah. So when you said I'm making a demand, I was just like, what? What's that?
Yeah. I think you were thinking about something, but the emotion was disconnected from what you're thinking. I was feeling the child's hurt and anger of, but I'm entitled to safety. But I'm owed safety. I was just feeling that come out of you. So I was like, oh, right there. So you will feel when next time you're with her child and she's feeling afraid and you say, okay, it is not safe to feel emotions. What about it? She's going to get angry.
Because this I've been creating is a safe space. So I've been absolutely meeting that addiction.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I will say to her child, give me the pain, I'll process it. And that creates trust, it creates flow, because it's the adult that can cope with emotion.
I don't even think I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other process, because on that.
Well, I'm just trying, I'm just walking, basically banging my head on the wall, stubbing my toes everywhere, trying to process, trying to figure it out, trying to work out many different ways. But because you get to a place where you are, sorry, I'm just trying to share screen. It's a bit slow today. Keeps freezing. Okay, so you are in this place.
Right at the beginning.
Right, so you're in this place here. And then you get into this place here and you're going, oh, this sucks. I don't want this. But I can't go back here. This sucks. I don't want this. So you're kind of like in this no man's land of like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So you're just trying all this different thing and you start to feel the fear and you're processing it. And then you get to find the hurt child and you're going, okay, how do I talk to the hurt child? This is where she's at. This is how I'm treating her. So there's this back and forth process that happens where it's just uncomfortable. Like I feel this is the hardest part of it all. Both sides are pain. Both sides are uncomfortable. You don't know if you're doing it right. Every step of the way, you got to have prayers and prayers and prayers. And there's judgment, there's shame, there's embarrassment. We end up getting lost in their shame cycle in the judgment cycle, and that's not doing anything either. And then you figure that out, and then you release that, and then try different things. Try different prayers. The prayer I usually have is, I got to stop my addiction. But now the prayer is, I got to find the hurt child, because I've connected to enough of the hurt child that I go, this is a rescue mission. But it's not about taking the child out of it. It's about taking the child through finishing the emotional process. Because ultimately, it's about the suppressed emotion. And the emotion is suppressed in the child. So you got to help the child process the trauma. But then the adult gets angry. Why did the kid have to, why when anyone's rescuing the kid and now the kid have to go through, You get that out of the way. And then you're like, okay, how do I help the child process what has happened? She needs to finish the processing of the emotion. So you got to get the kid going through, say, sexual abuse. Now you got to help the child feel and remember and react to rapes. How, like, you just like, oh my God. So now you turn to tantrum, get to the child's emotion. I can last 1 second, 5 seconds, 1 minute, like it just, every step is emotional. But somewhere in there, I tell myself, right now, I'm not engaging addictions. Right now, I probably will check off a bunch of addictions and not engage them. Whew, this is worth it. This is worth it. So once you see enough of the pain of the addiction, you're like, I gotta get this kid out of this pain. So once you're in the hurt child, you're engaging with a hurt child, you're in a good place, in a very good place.
And resistance, like feeling like to make a child relive that is abuse, but that's a demand. Then.
Yes.
Okay. That's the tantrum.
That's the tantrum.
Okay. Thank you. Super helpful.
Yeah. That one took me 10 months, 8 to 10 months. I can't remember. It was 8 or 10 months. The anger about having to get the kid to go through that process again. Are you freaking kidding me? 10 months. How upset I was about having to go through that. So every step of the way, there's education going on of yourself and the hurt child, teaching the hurt child why this needs to be done. And then the hurt child is going, but then I have to feel I am to blame. It's like, oh, that's the process. Okay, how do I work through the child's feeling she used to blame? How do I get her to process the emotion? Is she to blame? Is she not to blame? How do I work with that? So that takes a whole bunch of banging your head in the walls again, trying to work through that whole piece. But you're engaging with it. You're angry. You're frustrated. You're wrestling with the issue. It really, really helps. Get in it and get flustered, get angry, get loud, because you're engaging it. All those locked up pieces in your soul are coming out. And if they're coming out, then they can be answered. So this is where I go, I embrace the resistance. That's the feisty self in me, and that just gets in there and just give a voice to all of it. It's a wrestling match in there, and you get in and you engage. That's where the good stuff is.
I embrace the resistance.
And then ask for God's truth. God, what is your truth about this? God, if I were to forgive right now, what would that look like? I just want to get the kid through forgiveness process so I can move on. What does that look like?
God, if I were to forgive right now, what would that look like?
If I were to engage the process of forgiveness, what would that look like right now? Because that looks different than you walking around in circles in a cycle of blame. How do we take you through a different process? Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
You gotta pray every step of the way. You gotta pray,
Okay.
and you gotta be honest with how you're really feeling about that situation. But to me, not engaging addiction is its own reward. Like I'm telling the hurt child, we're getting rid of addictions right now. This is, man, is so worth it. So worth it. And then I start to recognize the hurt child's nature and character, and I'm just falling in love with the little kid. Just in love. Like I've connected to a very, very angry child that just want to hurt everyone and everything. And I just adore her to pieces. Like at some point, I'm feeling my anger. Like I just want to hurt everyone. And I'm going, just go with it. It's just an emotion. Just go with it. I just want to hurt people. I'm just so angry. I just want to kick them. And at some point I go, this sounds really young. I think this is a child's emotion. It's not even the adult. And then at some point, I start to kind of go, you're kind of cute. You just want to hurt people, but you're so cute. And at some point it becomes the child going, can I kick somebody? And I go, no, you can't. But, so there's this relationship growing between me and this child. And it's finally at some point she said, okay, fine, I'm done being angry. I'm tired. Okay. And then I think it was about, I'm just mad that no one loved me. And I go, found you. That's your hurt. Okay. And then I can teach the child that love is a gift and people chose not to give it. And that's okay. And you can feel about that. But supposedly, if I feel about that, some other kind of love will come. Let's go find out. So it takes a lot of time. Like she'll express her emotion, which isn't very pleasant. And then you're like, what's the matter with me? So now you've judged the child and down she goes again, back in hiding. So you start to, if you don't judge the emotion you're feeling and you can pray to God, please help me own this emotion. I just want to burn the whole freaking planet right now. What is the matter with me? But help me own this. I'll go with you. Let's just see what happens here. And those are the processes that always takes me to a hurt child that I end up just falling in love with. And so I don't allow self-judgment now because that's the kid. I'm judging a kid. I'm not going to do that. I can see more questions coming. This is great. Jill?
I'm not 100% sure how to phrase this question, but the hurt that was done to us, like I'm talking like at like as infants. So even, before sort of I was still a hurt child, but before that hurt child kind of comes in, how is that just grief that we're looking for, or is that still, like I said, I'm not too sure how to word this question. How do we separate the inherited or the inherited hurt rather than the hurt that was, they're both hurt that was done to us, but is that making sense? The inherited hurt rather than like as we grow up, so if somebody punches us, then that's hurt that we have to grieve. But the inherited hurt, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah.
And how to separate the two.
Yeah. So there was this one hurt I've been processing lately. Oh, self-loathing. So I was processing self-loathing. This has been about a year now. And I'm processing it and feeling about it and trying to like, oh, please don't do self-loathing, but what is this feeling? I felt and felt and felt. And then last week the penny dropped and I go, no, it's my mother. This is my mother's self-loathing. This is hers. I got it from her. And it's like, oh, and I could feel like, oh my God, I can so clearly see her self-loathing. Like, that's what that feeling has been in her. So all this while I've been processing an emotion as if it's mine, because I do have self-loathing, only to find that it's inherited. Same difference.
Right.
Because once you've absorbed the emotion, it's now yours to release because of free will. And it took a life of its own in me. And then she treated me with loathing anyway. So now you got that, and then the sexual abuse also creates self-loathing because abuse gets internalized, so that adds to it as well. So there was a seed that just kept growing, and I had to put a stop and go, I can't treat myself like this. This is something's wrong here. This is self-loathing that I then treat other people badly. I treat them with loathing because I'm trying to get rid of the pain.
Okay. Yeah.
So either way, you still have to emotionally release it to get rid of it. And then some of them you'll go, oh, that was just my experience. Some of them you go, this is inherited. But
Yeah.
it doesn't change the process.
Okay. Yeah, because I can see the connection of where it can, like I so mine is self-hatred. You know, like I can see the connection of where that was created. So my, you know, my birth mother, hatred is not the right word. I'm still trying to search for that right word, but it's close enough for right now. You know, she hated me. And then I can see where it comes, like where it has manifested within my life from that. So, but it's still,
Are you
but
angry? Are you angry that she gave you self-hatred? Are you? Yeah.
oh yeah, that anger comes. I don't want to dominate because this is all sort of new and a much longer conversation. But
There's an anger here.
there is an anger there. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So maybe once you process the anger,
okay,
and you're like, because I had to feel about this is unfair. It wasn't even mine. I didn't deserve what happened to me. Why am I the one stuck getting rid of it? I processed that. This is unjust. Process that. Like a lot of this processing emotions of people corrupted me, so now I'm corrupted. I'll always have the story that I'm a corrupted soul. Like, whew, that was harsh to feel and release that shame that I'm now a corrupted soul. I have sinned. This is always going to be my legacy. I'm always going to look back at my story as I was that person. Oh, yeah, I still have some more anger about that. So I got to release that. So you have this phases of like, okay, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. And then you're like, okay, moving on.
Okay. Yeah, I think I think that was the answer to my question as far as looking at the anger first, because I have identified the anger. It's
you should be. Why not?
So yeah,
it is unjust. It is unfair that we start. So I'm feeling right now, the emotion I'm feeling right now is I'm just beginning to recognize even more that I am basically a very, very battered, bruised, abused child. Like I'm just this broken piece that, say if I had died when I was 20 and get to the other side, they would have treated me as a patient of like, whoa, so much trauma. We're going to keep you in the hospital. We're going to help you work through stuff. You're not going anywhere until this is done. You know, that would have been my treatment plan. So I'm just kind of going, I'm going to have to treat myself as a patient who's been very, very severely broken. And I'm probably just going to spend the rest of my life just getting rid of the pain. This is my life on earth. I was abused. I recovered from abuse. Nothing much was done. I couldn't do anything more than that. Like I'm coming to terms with, you know, I'm going to spend the rest of my life cleaning up and recovering from the abusers. And that was my one earth life. And I am the one having a better life because I'm here in the Western country and I have relative safety and relative resources. And so I'm actually having the better version of that. But this is it. This is my life. So I need to grieve that. This is all I can expect to happen with my life is to treat myself as a patient that needs to recover from abuses. I don't get to have a life where I get to express my gifts. So I'm letting, I mean, whether or not it's true, I'm at that grief that I need to release, that I can't treat myself as somebody who's like, I was born on earth and I did this and that, and I expressed myself and I had all this cool gift and I'm done now, and let's move on. No, I'm a very badly abused child. And all I've done is cover it over. And now I'm exposing all of those layers, looking at the damages, going, that's pretty much the rest of it. Hopefully I get more done after that. But I'm going to have to grieve it first, that this is kind of coming to terms with the fact that it is really this bad. I've been pretending to be well-functioning or resilient, or oh, I've moved on, or yeah, I can cope with it. Like, it's like, no, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad in here. Yeah. So that's the grief to release, and then things will change. Grace, no more question? No, you good? Okay. Others? Alicia, go ahead and ask. I can feel you have a question. I was like, oh, if you want. Virginia?
I've had things being shown to me in my sleep state.
Okay.
What's happening where I'm realizing that those are addictions. But I'm having a hard time sort of connecting it to my everyday life, and sometimes seeing where the usefulness of is, and then learning.
Oh.
When we experience something in our spirit body, like during our sleep state, did you, like, I've heard Jesus say and yourself say that that is like having the experience like here and now?
Yeah.
Okay. And just that.
So are you kind of going, well, how is, yeah, no, you want to treat your sleep state experience, if you can remember it, I can't remember it much yet, as a lived experience. You're actually doing things in your sleep state that are earning good points or bad points, or like it is something you're actually earning and experiencing as an actual life. And so you do want to, because from what I've learned, in your sleep state, you don't have facades. So you give yourself permission to just all out do more things that you won't let yourself do in your awake state, because you have facades about who you think you are.
Yeah, because I was being demanding, because I wanted to, like, to rage back and project.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah.
But everybody just disappeared and walked away. So it's still like nobody wants to hear me out, kind of thing, is what happened. So I was just trying to process it, like why this came.
So the emotion of needing to rage, nothing's wrong with it. If you're owning your emotion, nothing's wrong with it. It's just an emotion. Every step of the way, every feeling I'm feeling right now, I tell myself it's okay that I have this addiction and demands. I look back at 2 months ago and I go, oh God, oh my God, how did I not see it? Okay, it's just emotions. So there's nothing wrong with your needing to own and process some rage. But what it's showing you is that, but you demand that somebody hears you. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, that's the second part of it. That's like, well, that's got to drop. Nothing's wrong with owning your emotions. So whatever the emotions are, and they can get pretty dark because we kind of splinter off our hurt selves, going, oh, you're the angry one, you're the shameful one, you're the needy one, I don't want you. Well, at some point, they're going to come back and give you the emotion. And you're just going to have to process and release it. Like, sometimes I see a little one that is murderous. And how am I going to judge her? They're just emotions. So nothing's wrong with the emotion itself. The prayer is, God, help me own and release. Every single emotion you have in your soul, you're going to have to process and release lovingly. That's the prayer. Every emotion you have, you're going to have to be brave enough to go, it's in there, it's going to have to come out. It's okay.
Okay.
You're going to have to be brave.
Okay, thanks.
Selena, did you have a question or comment? No.
This kind of goes back a bit, what Alicia was talking about, and dismissing childhood memories.
Yeah.
Like just because that I just recently had that experience. I thought, you feel through an addiction and then you get a memory given to you and you go, oh yeah, that one again, you know.
Right there,
just
you're going,
see
oh, you
one
again.
Yeah, you again. Well, yeah, I've been there, done that. But what I did find that would help me get through that was to put myself in the position of the person projecting the emotions towards me, creating that emotion in me.
Yes.
And that really helped me a lot, because I think, oh, those are awful emotions, creating this in a child.
Yes.
So it helped me access and not be so dismissive of it, because of course our facade, we just go, yeah, well, that happened, it sucked, big deal, you know.
Moving on.
Yeah, move on. Yeah. So it helped me by putting myself in the position of the adult projecting that onto me and what they were feeling that created that feeling in me.
Yeah. That intensity of that rage coming at a child, you're like, that is something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I'm not feeling that's pretty bad. And I'm not feeling the hurt. Like if I did that to a child, I'd feel like a piece of shit. If I did that, right?
Okay,
that's a horrible thing to do to a child. If I was doing that to a child, I'd feel, yeah, that's awful.
Yeah.
And that helps me to not be so dismissive. Yeah, that emotion.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
And I did have another question, a question about Jill. So if maybe somebody knows something about this. So if you have an ancestral injury, so it's like a seed, like prenatally, and then, okay, so, and if that parent doesn't raise you, like they die or whatever, so that seed, if that seed's not fostered with more injury, does it still need to be resolved at the same level? Does it need to be resolved if it's
no, but it still has to be released emotionally. So you may just have a law of attraction experience that will try, because law of attraction will kick in to try to trigger that locked up emotion. And if you're living with families that are sensitive to that, then they'll just help you process it right away.
Yeah, because if they don't have that injury at all, I mean, it's highly unlikely, because we all seem to share so many of the same injuries that it's almost impossible, but it's possible, I suppose. Yeah.
Law of attraction takes care of that. That's what law of attraction is about. Like it just kicks in to keep poking at that suppressed emotion. It's always poking at your suppressed emotion over and over and over every day.
Yeah. So you might have a family where you go, you have this thing, you keep feeling this thing, and it just doesn't seem to fit in with anything we understand or anything, and it makes them sad or whatever, and then it was okay,
just go for it. Like at some point, if I can live long enough, I really want to foster children where I want to help them release the inherited stuff. So what kind of environment will I create where I go, oh, something just happened to the child may come home and go, well, the kid was mean to me at preschool. Let's go in. What was that like? What did it feel like? What did you feel like doing back? And let's get one little event. Big 3 days of crying. Done. So at some point, you're kind of going, it's a pocket of emotion. How do we get this moving? That's all you care about. Like you just become very, objective. I have an emotion. It's a pocket of emotion. Just needs to get released. How do we do it? You become very cold. You want to say that, very strategic about it, especially with little kids, if you get a chance to do that. Grace?
Yeah, just adding to that, I think for me, like wanting to know the why of an emotion was just another addiction. And a way for me to avoid the emotion. So yeah, I think the most important thing is just to like, what am I feeling? Like, what is this making me feel? And once you process enough of it, like the memories do actually come, even if you haven't figured it out to begin with. I think, Mila, you already said that. So yeah, just be careful of that. Like sometimes it helps to have like context, and it helps you to engage like empathy or sort of compassion, but ultimately like it doesn't really matter the why of what happened. It's like, I still feel this, so it has to come out.
Every pocket of suppressed emotion got to move, all of it, because it's an energy. It has to move, period. Like it's bottom line is suppressed emotion is what's causing the problem, and the attempt we make to suppress emotion, which require addictions, causing additional problems. That's it. Your law of attraction kicks in because there's a suppressed emotion. So let's say, and this was so hard for me to come to terms with, let's say I absorbed sexual abuse emotion from my parents. What's the law of attraction going to bring me? Sexual abuse. It's like, what? Boy, I don't know how long I tantrum about that one. But law of attraction is kicked in to recreate that so that you can release it emotionally. But what happens is we then suppress the child from processing her sexual abuse emotion, and now you've added another layer. It's an event to trigger the parents to then start to feel their emotion about sexual abuse and shame and all of that. The whole thing can come and fall apart. But I still have some opinions about that I need to process. Casey?
The light bulb went off when you just started sharing what you said. Is that also possible even if, like, say our parents had the sexual abuse, but didn't actually sexually abuse us, but we would still attract it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it is. Must be what it is for me. Like, neither parent have want to or are capable of talking about it. But considering how terribly extensively sexual abuse happened to me as a child, come on. Like, I must have absorbed the injury from one of my parents or both, and then law of attraction kicked in.
Okay.
To recreate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not talking about being abused by the parent, but
Okay.
absorbed.
Absorbed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
If, let's say, I have a lot of feeling unworthy or was bullied as a child, now my child is going to get bullied. Now the emotion is in a child, law of attraction kicks in for them.
Okay.
To trigger them and hopefully trigger the parents' emotions at the same time.
Yeah. Thanks.
Virginia? Oh, you're mute.
I'm feeling it right now, like, really, that it is so unjust.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That this child has this put upon them. Like,
Uh-huh.
how are you supposed to figure that out when you have this happen to you as a child, these horrible things, and you don't even know why they're happening? So how, I didn't get a list of laws and how they worked when I was born. Like, I just feel like it's so unjust right now.
Absolutely.
It's really upsetting me right now. Like, to hear that.
You process it. It really makes a difference. I have processed it. Now I feel a lot different. I just look at a child and I go, the only thing I need to do is go into forgiveness. This is where my freedom is. And the child in me is in harmony with me that if I do this, I will stop being in addictions. The child in me doesn't want to hurt people. And I'm just like, I just love this little kid because the kid is saying, will I stop hurting people? Yes. Okay, I'll do it. And I'm like, what are you made of? So, all that self-approval and self-love is coming in. No, there's stuff to process for sure. That's really harsh.
I wonder, like, is there a possible way of it being resolved when it happened, even though you were a child? Yeah. Not carry it? Like,
what does every child do? Child feel. You deny a child a candy, it is a huge 3-day meltdown if you let them do it properly. What is a child? Every child is born knowing how to feel because that is all you need. You just got to feel about it and release it, and it's over and it's over and it's over. We don't allow the child to process emotions. We have stopped the process they were perfectly capable of doing right from the get-go. That's all you needed. You're feeling your own feelings, you're going to be fine.
Oh, I'm still feeling it's unjust, so I'm going to have to work through that.
Process that, absolutely process it. Let yourself go through it. And then you get some relief, you get some answers, you get some understanding. Absolutely. Get in there and wrestle the bear. Okay. Other questions? Comments? Selena?
Oh, I just had a big aha here. So if my mother had like secret sexual incest abuse in her family, and even though I didn't suffer any sexual abuse, I could see how that could make me blind to certain types, like to abuse. For instance, my husband's infidelity and all of the lying and all of it, just didn't see it.
Yeah,
Years.
exactly.
Didn't see it, didn't like, and I'm going, and then now in retrospect, you look at it and go, whoa.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
how could you have missed that?
Yeah, absolutely. You
But
become
then I just made that connection between my mother's secretive incest, like the family secret of abuse
shame,
and incest,
the
and the shame of all
And
of
then you
that. So I
numb to
could
it.
see now how that injury passed on to me could make me blind to being
Yeah.
abused.
Yeah.
'Cause
Absolutely.
Like this, wow, that's a big understanding. Wow.
Yeah.
Whew. Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. And hopefully that gives you self-compassion and self-forgiveness, going, well, I inherited the stuff. What else was going to happen to me?
Yeah, because I
What else
have
was
been kind
gonna-
of beating myself up about being such an idiot.
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
And speaking of that, I did come to terms with when the child is always going, am I to blame? Did I do something wrong? Could I have stopped it? And I'm like, you could have never been able to stop what those adults were going to do to you. But then I've also said to the child, you absorbed all these emotions. These are your parents' law of attraction. What else was going to happen? Like, this is mathematical. What else was going to happen to you than what did happen to you? So the child felt this relief of like responsibility of like, that's just laws kicking in, and all I need to do is process my emotions about it and move on. So that is also actually kind of a relief once I finish tantruming about it.
Yeah. Like, it brings to mind that a pedophile with the help of dark spirits will actually be able to, even if he's randomly picking a house to break into to hurt a child, take a child, he will pick the right one of the child that's the right victim. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is deliberately given the
And-
emotion.
Yeah. And that's very hard for people to hear that have had that happen to them. I've had experience of that. Yeah. Very hard to hear.
It has been hard for me to hear. And by having processed it, now I just see it as facts. And God has given the child a way to rescue herself, which is you process your emotions and forgive. That is the rescue. That is the help. Has always been given. So now that the child understands it, she passionately wants to engage it. So lots of education that happens along the way between addictions and connecting to the hurt self, lots of re-education that happens, or original education, because we've not been educated. Lots of learning happens in this. Yeah, that's good. Jess.
I'm wondering if or what the connection to releasing it in me, does that have any effect ancestrally? Like, so how does that relate?
Okay, good one. So when it comes to me passing injury to my children, passing emotions to them, passing addictions to them, when I process my emotion, it has a very strong effect on my children and their children. So it kind of, I don't know how the mathematical exactness of it, but in some cases you can literally take the emotion back. But in some cases, it loosens it in them. Like they start to feel like, hey, wait a minute. You know, you start to get angry, they start to get intolerant of the emotion, and they start to engage it. Their law of attraction kicks in to help speed up the process. So when you're processing emotions, things speed up for your children. And you're like, why are bad things happening to them? No, that's law of attraction going, let's get this one moving. So on going downward has a very strong effect. You can really do a lot to help downward generation. Backward, I call it like a knock on the door on the parents, going knock, knock, knock. This stuff, you know, the parents' conscience start to get bothered. They start to feel an invitation, an awakening. So it's up to the parent if they wish to then wake up. Most times the parent will start pushing back at the child that's working on their emotion. You feel a pushback and you have to really stand your ground and go, I will feel this emotion. You can feel their rage coming at you, their blame coming at you. I've had some ancestor from God knows when, a male ancestor, come and rage at me because I was connecting to sexual shame, some kind of shame. And I was like, I'm not to blame. And then saw this ancestor come yell at me, and because I'm a property. I don't even know how many times removed he was. And I stood my ground and said, I'm not your descendant, I'm God's child. This is a divorce. And I never saw him again. I just said, I am doing this, I will not stop. So with ancestors, it creates an invitation. If the parent can be open, then you can feel the pain coming back from your child, and you can receive it, and you can heal very deeply, and it helps the child to not feel that pushback. But I call it knocking on the door on the ancestors, but on the children, you can just take it back. So I hope that answers your question.
Thanks. Yeah, it creates more new ones, but yeah.
This is what I'm learning so far. I'm still walking around here, banging in the walls, sorting it out. I have had one experience, again, this was in Hawaii, maybe the same trip. I'm feeling this emotion of, I didn't deserve what happened to me. And then I felt my grandmother on the paternal side, felt her so clearly. She showed up and she said, oh, I gave you the emotion that if someone treats you badly, it's your karma and you're supposed to take it. She went, wait, that came from me. I passed you that and I accept my mistake. And she thanked me. She said, until you felt it, I couldn't see the connection. Like she was like, she got it and she accepted it and she started to process it. So this is a huge multi-generational cultural error that reincarnation, if someone treated you badly, you did something to them, so now it's your turn to take it. So they enable aggressive, violent behavior from people because you're supposed to take it. So, but that was a gift. It was a gift that an ancestor came and say, oh, I see it now and I was wrong. So good for her and good for me, makes it easier for me, But I see it as a gift. I don't see it as an expectation. However, I'm entitled to free myself of everything I have inherited or experienced. That is my right. It's not depending on any ancestors' willingness to feel it. And it makes sense that God created it that way. And as somebody that's done damage to others, I also have the right to release the pain I've caused, even if my victims take 2,000 years to forgive me. I shouldn't be dependent on that either. I also have that freedom. That feels just. Once you realize it's the emotional processing that gives you the freedom, it feels just. You can feel that anytime you want. It's up to you. And that feels like, yeah, makes sense. Okay, we feel like lots of thinking going on here. That's really good. One last question. Alicia? Oh, you mute?
Yeah, I just, it was something between you and me and Selena and I think it's a few conversations anyway. I'm remembering years ago feeling that I had to ask my father for forgiveness. He just passed. And I went, anyway, I did some processing long time before DT. And then I remember having a memory of him as not that I remember, but I had an image of him as a little child being blamed for his brother's death. And I didn't even know anything about any of that. It was like the guides gave that to me. And then I remember eventually my father came to me and said that actually it's me who needs to ask for your forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's many other layers, but anyway, it was a layer of forgiveness that happened at that time. But why I'm saying that is because that past thing, and also not knowing where you've received things from. There's sometimes you have those feelings, but there's a part of you wants to know, well, why do I have those feelings? And sometimes it's like the guides or whoever is dropping in some memories of stuff you have no idea about.
That's right. No, we do get that we get a lot of help in this process. Absolutely.
Yeah. As you said, you pray.
And when I'm feeling processes of like blame, being blamed, am I to blame? Who's right? Who's wrong? The God's laws have already exist, and it's God's laws that decided in this situation you were wronged or you did the wrong. So usually when I have a lot of spirits coming at me going, look at what you did, and I will say, well, I'm going to go ask God about that. What does God feel? Does God feel I broke a law? Does God say I did something wrong? And by the way, God is not going to nag me about it. God is not going to treat me badly about it. I'm going to go talk to God about this issue, because it's about whether God feel, did your parent wrong you? You may say, oh, that's okay, I don't mind. But from God's perspective, her child was wronged. So in that instance, you need to forgive. Or in whatever situation when God feels you did break a law, you did do a wrong, then you go, okay, if God says I did, I did. Okay. There's nothing shaming or awful about it. It's just that a law was broken and God wants you to correct it and come back to being happy and learn about the laws so that you don't hurt yourself. In the process, you learn about the laws. So to me, ultimately, it's about, from God's perspective, did something wrong happen? And is this something I need to repent or something I need to forgive? Ultimately, it's like what Grace says, it's just a feeling. You just got to feel all of it. Doesn't matter.
And by the way, I love your line. I could see it on a t-shirt. My freedom is in forgiveness.
Yeah, I know. Trying to tell a child that, and repentance, actually, we need to add that. I still have feelings about, well, I just need to forgive, right? And it's like, usually you have more to repent than to forgive. Yeah, I have some self-judgment I need to work on. Okay, so next week, I have no clue what we're talking about. But we'll come up with